Most of us view failure as a sudden earthquake. We assume people wake up one morning to find their businesses bankrupt, their relationships destroyed, or their mental state collapsed into deep depression. But the truth is, no human fails overnight. Failure is never a sudden event. It is a quiet, suffocating process that begins long before the final collapse. It works exactly like a tree hollowed out by termites, standing strong on the surface until a tiny breeze shatters it completely. Our biggest misconception is assuming that as long as things look fine on the outside, we must be on the right path. Yet the very first step toward failure is taken on the quietest days. The moment you decide to repeat a minor bad habit, drop a basic routine, or tell yourself, just this once won't hurt. Failure doesn't enter your life with loud alarms. It creeps in silently, striking precisely when you feel everything is under control. In this breakdown, we aren't just talking about financial loss or career setbacks. We are deconstructing the exact psychological and behavioral mechanism that leads a person step by step to destroy themselves.
Humans rarely fail through massive, dramatic mistakes. They crumble through indifference to small choices. Our brain is wired to react instantly to immediate threats. If a wild predator appears, your entire body shifts into fight or flight mode. But if you waste 30 minutes scrolling on the couch, no internal alarm goes off. That is the ultimate trap. Imagine dropping a single coin into a jar every day. On day 1, nothing changes. On day 10, still nothing. But after a year, you have accumulated wealth. The compound effect works identically with failure. The day you skip reading, neglect your health, or choose silence over resolving an issue in your relationship, nothing terrible happens immediately. The earth doesn't open up to swallow you. That apparent lack of consequence tricks you into thinking you are safe, and that is where repetition takes hold. Failure is simply a collection of minor errors in judgment, repeated daily.
When these ignored decisions pile up, they turn into a massive avalanche that no one can stop once it gains momentum. You don't fail because you lack potential. You fail because you ignore the direct impact of today on tomorrow. As the downfall begins, your mind subconsciously senses that something is wrong, but instead of stopping to face the truth, it builds defense mechanisms. This is where the rate of decline accelerates because you start lying to yourself. The most dangerous tool the mind uses at this stage is justification. We begin blaming the world, luck, the economy, family, or society. We say, if I didn't succeed, it was because of bad circumstances, or if my relationship failed, it was because they didn't understand me. Blaming others is the sweetest yet most destructive painkiller a person can take. It temporarily relieves the weight of responsibility while making the underlying disease 1,000 times worse. When you refuse to take ownership, you tell yourself you are powerless to change anything. As a result, you turn to cheap, temporary pleasures just to escape reality for a few hours. Endless scrolling, substance use, binge gaming, or impulsive spending are all coping strategies used to numb the anxiety of falling. But when the temporary numbness fades, you wake up in the exact same hole, only now it's deeper and time is running out.
Over time, these destructive habits and endless excuses strike at the deepest layer of your existence, your identity. Up until this point, you were simply a person making mistakes. At this stage, you become someone who views themselves as a failure. The difference between the two is night and day. When your self-worth erodes, you stop honoring promises made to yourself. You decide to wake up early, but when the alarm rings, you hit snooze without a second thought. Why? Because deep down, you've accepted that you aren't someone who keeps their word. This quiet breaking of personal promises completely destroys self-confidence. At this point, a person enters a state of emotional numbness and surrender. Setbacks no longer spark anger, and falling short of your goals no longer hurts. You simply raise your hands and say, "It is what it is." This numbness is the most painful phase of failure. You are alive and breathing, but entirely hollowed out on the inside.
A passive spectator watching your own ship sink without even attempting to swim. Eventually, the avalanche hits the bottom of the valley. All the ignored warnings, justifications, hesitation, and escape tactics collide at a single intersection to deliver the final blow. This is the moment the world calls failure, though you know it was merely the logical outcome of a path you walked for years. At this point, reality hits so hard that no excuse can shield you anymore. Negative bank balances, broken relationships, job loss, or severe health issues manifest all at once. The world you built crumbles before your eyes. In this moment, you realize just how expensive those
those temporary escapes really were. The heaviest shock at the point of extinction is realizing how much time was lost. You realize you were stuck in the traffic of aimlessness, laziness, and pride, while everyone who started alongside you moved miles ahead. That weight of regret, the burning thought of what if I had actually tried, is the most painful burden a person can carry. Yet, the story doesn't end here, because one final dimension determines whether these ruins become your grave or your fresh foundation.
No matter how bitter or destructive failure is, it is never the final chapter of a human life unless you choose to bury yourself there. History is filled with people who walked to the very edge of complete ruin and turned back. The difference between someone who is permanently destroyed and someone who is reborn comes down to one thing: a brutal confrontation with the truth. To rebuild, your first step is throwing away every excuse. You must look in the mirror, stare into your own eyes, and say out loud, all of this damage was my doing. I am responsible for my failure. As painful as that admission is, it hands you back the greatest power in the world, because if you caused your own fall, you hold the power to engineer your rise. Rebuilding doesn't happen through miracles. Just as you sank through small wrong choices, you rise through small right choices. You must rebuild micro-disciplines, from making your bed to taking a short walk or reading a few pages. You have to earn your own trust back, piece by piece. Failure is a ruthless teacher, but if you listen, it imparts the deepest lessons of life. It exposes where you held false pride, where you lied to yourself, and which parts of your character need repair. No human is destroyed by falling. A human is destroyed by staying down and refusing to stand back up. Plant your feet firmly on the ground, take absolute ownership of your life, and take that first small step toward rebuilding today.
To rise from the depths of failure, you need one crucial element that most people lack: the conscious courage to face your past. Redeeming your mistakes is by no means easy. It crushes your pride and forces you to confront the very things you spent years running away from. But the reality is that no escape is permanent, and the only path to true freedom is walking straight through the fire. Courage begins the moment you stop denying reality. You no longer say, "It wasn't my fault," or "It's too late now." Turning back from a wrong path requires you to forgive yourself without ignoring what happened. Admitting a mistake is not a sign of weakness, it is the ultimate expression of human strength. When you courageously acknowledge where you failed, what you damaged, or how you hurt yourself, you reclaim the steering wheel of your life. To make amends, don't wait for a miracle or a specific day. Break your mistakes down into small, actionable steps. If you wronged someone or caused damage, swallow your pride, apologize, and fix it directly if possible. If direct redemption isn't an option, pay that debt by living right and helping others. Redemption means showing transformation through action, rather than drowning in useless guilt and regret. Bravery means knowing the road back might be long and painful, yet taking the first step anyway. It doesn't matter how far down the wrong path you've traveled. The moment you decide to turn around, you are no longer the person you were. Starting today, stand tall, face the consequences of your past with complete courage, redeem what was broken, and refuse to let yesterday hold tomorrow hostage. In the end, failure is never a sudden earthquake. It's the quiet buildup of small, ignored mistakes repeated day after day. We only truly fail when we hide behind excuses instead of facing reality, slowly eroding our own self-worth. But the good news is that no collapse has to be permanent. If you have the courage to take absolute ownership of your past and stop running, today becomes your turning point. It doesn't matter how far down the wrong road you've walked. The exact moment you decide to turn back is the moment you are reborn. Plant your feet firmly on the ground and take that very first step toward rebuilding your future today.